this was the original one, is actually the first project of the Stanford D School before it was the Stanford D School. It was like a grad student working for David Kelly who was like, I want to help. And he's like, these people are asking questions, go help them. And then that slowly evolved and formalized into the Stanford D School where Laura now works. And so there are also, like any kind of buzzword in education, there are different flavors of design thinking. And so we stay pretty closely bound to the D School's version. And when we can walk in a little bit, it's going to be, we should there'll be lunch recess in a little bit, which is just crazy fun time. And so we'll walk in there during that and you guys can see some adventure. But you'll see a diagram in there that'll kind of walk through what the design thinking process means to us. And especially in the younger grades, one of the things that we're super interested in is the creative confidence piece. And so both of the book of the same title, but really that students have a belief, a growth mindset, you can call it a million different things, that they are someone that isn't innately creative or non-creative, but they are someone that has some experience and some skills around being generative with ideas, right? They can come up with ideas, and that once they have those ideas, they have some skills around how to test them, how to like communicate with the user, and then refine and iterate them. Because the one thing that I hear and I have like learned over and over again is that everything is really just skills. It's like, do you have experience with it? Something as simple as an interview. How do you conduct an interview and not just reinforce your own beliefs? Show me an adult that can do that, right? Let alone like a fourth grader. And so that's one of those things where you really learn, like, what are those little self-talk things you say? What are the things that you have to remind yourself, oh, I just asked a very closed-ended question, right? That's something you can learn. You can learn really quickly, and you will still struggle with, but like we can improve over time on. And so while students are going through, yeah, they learn about design thinking, they learn about prototyping and language, but really we want to take them through it again, and then reflect on how that was, and then take them through an entirely new design thinking process. Again, building language, building understanding, but really more than anything, building experience. Because we could talk about it all day, but I mean, you guys are probably here because you're interested in constructivist pedagogy. So like, we really want them to be doing it in a context that is authentic. And that probably sounds very familiar to a lot of the other schools you've been to, even though we have kind of this design thinking lens. And another thing that's just interesting for my context, having been in a few of these different worlds, is I have a personal belief that there is this like orb of truth, right, of this thing called great education or being a great person or whatever you want to call it, and we have all these lenses through which to look at it. We have project-based learning, we have design thinking, we have inquiry-based, like we have all these things that let us peek in at it, and we will never be able to touch it, but we can look at it, I think what's important is that you find the one that speaks to kind of you and your population, both your faculty population and your student population. Because really, when you start thinking about the consistent purpose, you need someone who's going to be shouting from the rooftops all the time. And if they're not someone that's bought into one or the other, probably not going to work. And so getting at your question a little bit about that consistency is, one is, I think, saying it out loud, whether that's physically speaking it or writing it down all the time, over and over and over again. Kim, our director, who's not here, is just known for every other thing that comes out of her mouth is a relation back to design thinking, right? Oh, so what you're saying is you're prototyping, right? Which they were totally, but they hadn't connected, like, oh, yeah, I guess I am doing design thinking, right? Because truth is, you go to any good classroom where there's really good learning happening, you're going to be able to pick out elements, and you could probably find elements of PBL, you could probably find elements of inquiry-based. You could find kind of whatever you're looking for, but articulating it when you see it, I think, is really important. And then the second thing is, and I believe this is true for any kind of education, whether it's helping build a faculty or build students, is like overlapping experiences. And so as a faculty, if your only experience with whatever methodology you choose is hearing about it, and then you teach kind of in your isolated way, or only relate sometimes back to other people, you're going to have your own definition, and you were going to do it totally differently. And so schools approach that in different ways. Some do partner teaching, so it's kind of a kind of forced overlap where there's no way you can't talk about differences, and that tends to like bubble up socially. The other thing is having ways for your faculty to exist in the same space. And so whether that's a teacher's lounge or whatever it is, some way that faculty will bump into each other a lot. And that can be as simple as like a glass wall versus a solid wall. We're out of space, so we're not going to put desks in our classrooms this year. Like, figure out the way so people tend to bump into each other. Because I think most educators, if they have exposure to other educators, they're going to talk about education. And they're going to collaborate in really interesting ways. It's just our nature is, oh, wow, that was a long class. I'm just going to sit down and do email for 10 minutes, right? And you're in a closed area, and so the day goes by, right? And most of us would do that, given the exact same conditions. And so how can we change the conditions? So it's like, oh, my classroom really isn't a great place for me to sit for the rest of the day quietly during my prep period. Maybe it's better for me to walk into the library where there's really comfortable seating next to a fireplace, right? So in the winter, guess where all the faculty happen to chat? By the fireplace. And so having those collaboration spaces that people go to is really important. And then Kim, the director, and I just talked at the Association of Independent Schools about how we kind of, I hate the word, but like manage our faculty. And we have a small faculty in iLab, we're 12 now. And one of them is we have a great term for it. It wasn't micro-coaching, micro-interactions. And so very rarely will we do any kind of real sit-down review. Very rarely. But one of the things I try to do as someone that's really kind of in charge of curriculum for basically all the classes is I try to be in the classes as much as physically possible. When I have that temptation to do my email, I do it in the back of the class. Right? When I'm like getting ready for the tour I just led before this, I'm getting ready in that corner of that class. So even if I'm not there doing a review, my ear's there, I know what's going on. I say, oh, I noticed like Al, who was teaching a computer science class, a very new teacher. So thinking, oh, I heard him use some language that's kind of interesting. And we'll have a 30-second interaction about that later in the day. And I think we have those constantly. I mean, like, not a day goes by where we don't do some kind of, oh, I noticed this thing. Like, what was that about? Right? And it's like, oh, they'll give me some context, or we'll chat about it. Or sometimes they'll just say, I noticed you use this language. That is not something we use here. Right? Not like punitive in any way, just like, hey, something I observed, let's check it out. And I think by that being just a consistent thing, it's just normal, right? Everyone's kind of open to it. And people don't tense up when I walk into the back of their classroom, right? Because it's not really evaluative. I'm like one of the people that kind of helps with curriculum. And in the same way, that kind of forms a relationship. So if it's a Sunday, or if there's a break period and someone's working on their curriculum and is not really sure, I become a person they want to talk to about it. And so then I also can then sense a little bit of which direction things are going. Because sometimes you catch something and you're like, ooh, that's not going the direction I hoped for. And if it's been 3 days, that's an easy kind of redirect. If that's been a month because I happen not to go to that classroom, then it's like, I can't really do that without disrupting.
So, can you just explain how iLab, you said it works verbally across